How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Minus the Gym Q&A Friday. And normally I'd want to shoot these outside, take you on a walk, but it's a bit windy today and I didn't want the mic making all kinds of noise with the wind, so I am indoors. Hope you don't mind that. So let's get right down to business. I've chosen 7 questions from the last week that I want to answer. Now, the first questions I want to start with are actually about the Frogstand and experiencing pain in the wrists and lower back while doing Frogstand. And this comes from 2 comments, actually. The first is from Matteo Caruso. He said, "My wrists hurt while doing this. What can I do?" And the second comment, which I can't find at the moment, but I will put it on the screen if I can dig it up, was from, it was someone playing guitar in their profile icon, and they said they're experiencing lower back pain while doing Frogstands. So first, let's start with wrists. Frogstands, advanced Frogstands, tucked planche leans, they all put a lot of stress on your wrists. And as you learn the handstand, if you're going through my handstand playlist with Frogstand, headstand, and eventually handstands against the wall and freestanding, you're going to notice that your wrists are going to constantly be in this kind of position. This is extension, when your fingers are trying to pull back to your forearms. So you're going to be under a lot of your wrists are going to be under a lot of stress. So what I recommend doing is starting every session that you work on Frogstands or any handstand or planche progression with a thorough wrist warm-up. And this can also be a wrist mobility routine that you do on your active rest days to help strengthen your wrists. Now, I've already made an entire video about this, so instead of demonstrating it for you here, I'm just going to put a link up here at the top of the screen. So if you want to check that out later after you watch this, it's about a 5-minute wrist warm-up, and it's something you can also do on your rest days, and it helps build strength in your wrists aside from preparing them for your workout. Inevitably, at first, you're going to feel some discomfort in your wrists as you start doing these new things, but as you practice and you build strength and especially flexibility, then you're going to notice that it gets better and it gets easier. And eventually you'll get to the point where, like, now I do a quick 2 or 3 minute warm up and I'm ready to do 15-20 minutes of handstands and I'm fine. Now, on the topic of the lower back pain, like I mentioned, the person who left this comment was playing guitar in their profile icon, and I'm a guitarist as well. I've been playing guitar since I was 12 years old. And I know that when you're playing, you kind of, especially if you sit when you practice, you kind of hunch over the guitar and you look at the fretboard. And what this is doing is it's actually lengthening and weakening the muscles in your lower back, such as the quadratus lumborum. All right, and that and the erector spinae are both muscle groups that need to be strong for when you're doing Frogstand and any kind of calisthenics move where you're lifting your posterior end. All right, that's coming from the erector spinae, the quadratus lumborum. And if those are lengthened and weak, you're going to feel some discomfort. So what I recommend doing to build strength in the lower back is every single day, 7 days a week, I recommend just mobilizing the lower back. You can do this with trunk rotations, where you lay on the floor, your feet are together, and your legs are bent, and then you rotate your legs from side to side. And I'll put this on the screen so you can see me demonstrating it. But trunk rotations are great to warm up the QL and other hip movements in a quadruped position. Quadruped meaning you're on your hands and knees. And just like what I'm doing here, what I'm showing on the screen, it's almost like I'm hula hooping in this quadruped position, but this is great for fluid movement of the hips. And what you want to do is just every morning, I like to do some sort of hip mobilization like this to get blood flowing. So that way I'm warmed up and I can go about my day. And then 3 or 4 times a week, I recommend strengthening the lower posterior core muscles by doing reverse hyperextensions. This is really going to help you with, like I said, you have to lift up your back end when you're doing Frogstands, advanced Frogstands, tucked planche, and so on. So this is going to help you in the long run. But reverse hypers can be done like I demonstrated last week on the base bench, which is a new product from BaseBlocks. But I know a lot of people said, hey, that's out of my price range and I'm not ready to invest in something like that. So a cheaper option, if you want, is to get a stability ball. And you can just lean forward on a stability ball and do reverse hypers that way as well. No matter how you do it though, doing reverse hypers I think will be necessary to counteract that muscular imbalance that you might have in your lower back. Now, if you strengthen your lower back and you're still experiencing the discomfort or pain while working on frog stands, then you might want to go see an orthopedic just to make sure you don't have some sort of hidden injury. And in that case, they'll probably recommend you to a physical therapist. All right, question 2 is from Laura Lee. She asked on the Base Bench video, is this available in the UK? So here's the thing, I've received actually several comments from people about BaseBlocks equipment and international shipping. So I reached out to BaseBlocks before shooting this video and I asked them, and unfortunately they had to temporarily disable their international shipping because of COVID-19. They were getting so many cancellations on deliveries that it was just causing, I guess, too many headaches, and people weren't receiving their products and they were having to issue refunds. So they've temporarily disabled international shipping, but normally BaseBlocks will ship to the UK, Canada, and all these other countries that people have been asking me about, and I'm really sorry about that. But it's inevitable. This is just, with COVID-19 happening, it's just part of the fallout. But, make sure you stay tuned to BaseBlocks. Maybe they have a sign up, like an email list or something you can get on, because eventually, when the pandemic is over, they will start shipping internationally again. All right, question number 3 is from Franz Santos, asked, what if I'm skinny? Can I still work out and gain muscle? All right, this is a great question. It's something that I've actually wanted to make a small series of videos about on my channel, but I just haven't got around to it yet. In fitness, especially when I was first learning about fitness back in the late 90s, it was a hugely popular thing to talk about somatotypes. Somatotype just means body type, and you can think of it as there's really 2 main body types. There's ectomorph, which is the naturally very lean person, and then endomorph on the other side of the spectrum, which is the naturally, bigger person who puts on weight more easily. And there's different characteristics that distinguish ectomorph from endomorph. Now in the middle you also have mesomorph, which is the more athletic body type, but I'm not going to talk about that. In fact, I'm going to focus on ectomorph exclusively for this question. So an ectomorph is a person who is naturally very lean. They have trouble gaining weight. They typically don't have a big appetite, they just don't like to eat a lot. And also they have a smaller bone structure, meaning that their frame is typically smaller, especially in the waist. I've noticed on males who are ectomorphs, they have a very thin waist. And that can be a good thing, because once you grow those shoulders and you keep lean, you have a really nice V shape to you. So how does an ectomorph gain muscle? Well, there's 2 sides to that coin. There's the training side and the nutrition side, and I'll talk briefly about both, but this is a huge topic, just so you know. So on the training side, you want to focus more on high intensity, low volume. And the reason for that is to preserve calories, right? Calories are very precious to you if you want to gain mass. So you want to do maybe 3 or 4 sets per muscle group and keep it intense, like 5 to 8 reps. You want to be landing somewhere in there when you reach failure. And honestly, you want your rest periods to be as long as you can. Rest like 3 to 5 minutes. Be nice and rested for each set so you're at maximum strength. And again, you're not turning this into a cardio workout. No circuit training or anything like that. Keep it high intensity, low volume. And on the nutritional side of things, you're going to have to eat. That's where it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. And this is the ectomorphs that I've trained. When I tell them how many calories they have to eat, they're like, oh my God, it's like a hardship for them if they have to eat over 3,000 calories. Whereas an endomorph like myself, you tell me to eat 3,000 calories, I'm happy about it. I'm like, all right, let's make a bunch of food. So what you need to do is take your total body weight in pounds. I work in pounds because I'm from the US. Multiply that by 20, all right? So total body weight times 20, and whatever that number is a good starting point for how many calories you should consume daily. This is especially hard on taller ectomorphs. I trained someone who was like 6'2", maybe 6'3", and they were eating, I believe it was 3,400 calories a day. It works, all right, it works when you're eating that much, but it was just very difficult for them to squeeze in that much food. So don't do intermittent fasting, all right, focus on eating as much as you can, aiming for that total body weight times 20, and make sure you're getting, I would recommend at least 25% of your calories coming from protein is going to be really important. Some people go upwards of 30% of total calories from protein, but that can be really challenging. All right, and question number 4 is from Bahar Abdullah, asked, what about decaf coffee? And this was actually from my last Q&A video, all right, last Friday. I was talking about how I've been on and off caffeine, how I find it difficult to stay off. He asked, well, what about decaf? So here's the truth. Caffeine is only one of over 200 chemicals in coffee, believe it or not. And that's not counting all the pesticides, because coffee is the most heavily sprayed plant that's grown and consumed by people. So there's tons of chemicals. Some of them are stimulants like caffeine, some are diuretics and sapping your body of hydration. So for that reason, I think decaf is a good stepping stone for someone who wants to start cutting down on their coffee and their caffeine intake. But what I'm after is actually getting all those chemicals out of my body. So I think, yeah, decaf is good, but for me, it's just a stepping stone to getting to herbal coffee. All right, question number 5 is a bit lengthy, so I'm going to read the whole thing to you. It's from Schiffler Rings. And they asked, love your content, thank you. I also have a question. I'm 26 years old and love to train. And for all, I love to train with rings, but my problem is overthinking. Currently, I'm training 2 times a week upper body, 2 times a week lower body. That sounds like a good frequency to me. And the rest of the days I practice mobility and handstand. Excellent. But I always think that my workouts are not enough, and I switch and add exercises all the time. At the same time, I feel I have not progressed practically anything in the last time, and my strength has not improved. Okay, so when I read this comment, my first question that came up, and this is the personal trainer in me, what's your goal? Right? The first thing a personal trainer will do is do a fitness assessment and then talk to you about your goals. And we come up with SMART goals. So these are, something that's measurable and realistic, and it's something that we can help you achieve. But from reading this comment, I'm not getting a sense of what your goal is. So what I would recommend is, maybe you've already done this and I just don't know it, but pick a goal. That can be anything from I want to gain, 6 pounds of lean mass or whatever it might be, or it could be I want to get the ring muscle up. Just hone in on something. And then what you want to do, and this is to answer your question about overthinking, second guessing your routine, changing it up too much, find someone who's doing that. And I don't necessarily think it has to be my channel. I'm not selling any programs. Find someone out there who's doing the ring muscle up or the one-arm handstand or whatever your goal is, and buy their program and follow it to a T. And the reason why I recommend that is because, for one, they have the results. So they know what they're talking about. But 2, if you buy a program, you've spent money, your hard-earned money now on this rigid regimen that you're going to follow. And in my experience, when you spend money on something, that helps you adhere to it. You're like, well, I've dropped this money on it, I may as well give it my best and see what I get out of it. So I know that that's probably not the answer you were expecting, but really it comes to having a clear goal, finding someone who's your mentor, who's achieved it and can teach it to you, and then adhering to the program they recommend. And sometimes it comes down to buying a program so that you've spent the money, and that will help you stick to it. Okay, question number 6 comes from someone named Nikhil, and he asks, not sure if you mentioned this elsewhere, but where did you buy your weighted vest? I am looking for one and would appreciate your recommendations. All right, well, I got my weighted vest back in the day on Amazon, and I checked before shooting this video, and it's currently unavailable. So it's out of stock. I don't know if they'll ever get it back. I honestly don't recommend it. I've only used 2 weighted vests in my life, the one I have now and a friend of mine's. And the one I have now is really bulky. It goes up to 80 pounds, which is quite a bit of weight, but it's huge. I feel like I'm wearing a bulletproof vest or something. So I'd actually shop around a bit, see if you can find one that's slimmer. It might not go up as high in weight, but I really think having a slimmer vest is going to be better in the long run. I would actually probably use my vest more if it wasn't so bulky. And because I'm affiliated with BaseBlocks and I can get you 10% off with my discount code -10, I'm going to just say, just so you know, I'm not sure if they can ship to you right now because of COVID-19, but they do have a vest. They have a couple vests. I believe it goes up to 30 or 40 pounds. So just something to look into. You can get 10% off if you're able to buy it and get it shipped. All right, and this last question is from Sage Seeker, and they asked, hey Ryan, what's your thoughts on supplements like pre-workout or creatine? I'm a high schooler, and it's like all the rage in my school, but I haven't been using any. I feel like I don't need to be, right? Boy, this is actually a really hard question to answer because, again, it comes down to your goals. Now, I will tell you that whatever you want to achieve, you can do it with whole food. You don't need to supplement your nutrition, right? So yes, I will say that you don't need supplementation. That's for sure. But in some cases, having supplements to sort of augment your diet can be really helpful. and I'm going to just name 2 things that I personally use and I would recommend if you're trying to consistently build strength and muscle mass. And those 2 things are, for one, protein powder. So eating a plant-based diet, sometimes I find it pretty difficult to hit my protein numbers, but I use 1 serving of a plant-based protein powder per day in my morning smoothie typically, and that's just an extra 20 grams of protein a day, but it really helps me hit the numbers. I do not recommend using whey protein or casein protein or any kind of milk-based protein. Avoid that stuff. Milk is not good for your body. All right, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? So I can make a separate video about that. But get a plant-based protein powder. I get one that's a blend of rice, soy, and pea protein. But there's tons of different kinds out there. There's even raw proteins. So find one you like, try them all out. I don't really have a specific one that I use consistently or recommend. And try that out if you're having trouble getting enough protein in your diet. Also, you mentioned creatine. Yes, creatine can be helpful, especially when you're trying to build muscle mass. And the reason why is when we contract our muscles, we use something called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, as it's called for short. And we deplete our ATP in a set. That's why you reach that fatigue at the end of your set. But the thing is, when you have extra creatine stores in your muscles, and creatine is stored in other places too, but when there's extra creatine stores in your muscles, once you deplete your ATP, you can switch energy sources to that creatine phosphate and use that for, an additional 1 or 2 reps or whatever it might be. But actually, those extra couple reps are what keep you progressing and keep you going further. Now, a lot of people complain that creatine monohydrate, when you supplement it, it makes you puff up a little bit because of water retention, and that's true. So when you go off the creatine, when you cycle off of it, you're going to shrink a little bit, and people complain about that. But you know what? The muscle gains you make from the creatine will stay. So I actually don't think that's a downside, really. I mean, it is effective in helping build muscle. So again, it comes down to your goals and what you're struggling with. You don't need supplements by any means, but they can give you that edge, and they can, augment your diet if you're having trouble hitting certain numbers if you're counting your macros. I hope that helps, and I hope it makes sense. All right, everybody, thank you so much again for tuning in for another Q&A Friday. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope next week I can be outside and it's not so windy. All right, but we'll just see. It's November now. We're going to be coming into winter soon, so we'll see how that goes. And don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed this. That helps me out. And tune in next week for the next Q&A Friday. I'll see you then.